As a career coach and a former lawyer with ADHD, I'm often asked, what are the best jobs for a lawyer with ADHD? And in classic lawyer fashion, my answer is it depends. Because if you've met one person with ADHD, you've met one person with ADHD. Stay tuned as I share what the best kinds of jobs are for lawyers with ADHD. Welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Annie Little. I am a former lawyer and an ICF certified career coach. Since 2012, I've been helping lawyers find jobs they actually like by focusing on their core values, strengths, and most importantly, their interests. As always, we need to provide some context for why we're talking about ADHD lawyers to begin with and how ADHD impacts lawyers and the legal profession. I've got some more in-depth videos for you to check out, but briefly, ADHD, or Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, formerly known as ADD, is a neurodevelopmental condition that affects concentration, organization, impulse control, emotional regulation. Ultimately, it's the diminished ability of the brain to regulate attention. And despite the misnomer of attention deficit, we actually have an abundance of attention. So for lawyers with ADHD, these challenges can manifest in various ways, such as difficulty managing time, deadlines, staying organized, or maintaining a singular focus when needed. But most importantly, for purposes of this video, the ADHD nervous system is interest-based. And this is in opposition to the neurotypical nervous system, which is importance-based. And all you need to know is that importance-based triggers are things that are probably very familiar to you. These are things like priorities, rewards, consequences. These are things that will motivate you to do something you wouldn't otherwise be interested in doing. But because the ADHD nervous system is different and it responds to interest-based triggers instead, it means things like priorities and rewards and consequences won't snap an ADHD lawyer into action in the same way it will for a neurotypical lawyer. And this isn't bad, it's just different. So in order for ADHD lawyers to thrive, they need to have interest-based triggers that will spur their brain to regulate their attention. And these are things like urgency, interest, novelty, and challenge. Again, this isn't a limitation, it's just a difference. So as long as we understand how to work with the ADHD brain, we can find the best jobs for any lawyer with ADHD. So no surprise, an ADHD lawyer's job must be interesting. And of course, what is interesting to one person may not be interesting to another. So when I'm working with lawyers, both neurotypical and ADHD lawyers, to help them figure out what kind of job they'll actually like doing, we start with identifying and articulating their core values and their unique character strengths. And generally speaking, in terms of strengths, lawyers tend to exhibit excellent communication skills, quick thinking, and the ability to thrive in high-pressure situations. But these strengths are just one piece of the job search puzzle. Arguably, the most important and elusive factor for ADHD lawyers is discovering what they're genuinely interested in doing for work. Now, while having a job that you're interested in is necessary for an ADHD lawyer to find the best job for them, it's also incredibly valuable for neurotypical lawyers. Yet I find that the overwhelming majority of lawyers I work with don't consider whether or not they're interested in something to be a priority in their job search. Now, the unique struggle for ADHD lawyers in this area is discerning whether a particular job or practice area is truly interesting or if it's primarily challenging or novel. And as you can imagine, if it's one of the latter, that job is no longer going to be a great fit when the novelty wears off or where it's no longer challenging. And sometimes this can look like ADHD lawyers hopping from job to job, not because they're bad employees, not good lawyers, or they're getting fired, but rather because they get bored in their job and jump to another one that they think is like interesting, yay, like this is going to be a good fit, but it's primarily novel or challenging, and those all wear off. So keeping that interest finding something interesting in the back of our minds, let's explore some ADHD-friendly practice areas or jobs. And honestly, anything could qualify here because the best practice area for someone with ADHD is going to be the one that they themselves find genuinely interesting. And although people with ADHD share a lot of these traits and symptoms, the severity of them differs. We're still individual, unique people. That said, I can share some of the patterns I've noticed. I know a lot of former lawyers with ADHD, including myself, who practiced real estate finance law. My guess as to why this might appeal to lawyers with ADHD is that it's one of the more fast-paced transactional practices. So it's not quite litigation, but it's got that faster pace. But there's also more autonomy in terms of running deals. And obviously, like, we don't have to deal with the anxiety of court appearances. That said, I have had many ADHD lawyer clients who are excellent litigators. They love everything about it. They love going to court. They love the research. They love the interaction with the client. The only thing that they don't love is the burnout that often follows like long stretches of intense work. Because when an ADHD lawyer is interested in something, they're like a dog with a bone. That hyperfocus can come back to bite us with burnout. And I mentioned in an earlier video that people with ADHD tend to have a strong sense of justice and are very fairness minded. This can account for the ADHD lawyers who practice criminal law, and that can be on either side. But what I want you to keep in mind is that because people with ADHD are naturally divergent and creative thinkers, any practice area that's going to appreciate sort of innovative approaches or creative problem solving or new ways of doing things could also be a fit for an ADHD lawyer who is also interested in the subject matter. And kind of related to that different way of operating is the fact that people with ADHD are 300% more likely to be business owners. Yeah. So for context, 4 to 5% of adults have ADHD. We know that somewhere between like 12 and 20% of lawyers have ADHD, but 29% of entrepreneurs and business owners have ADHD. So anything business related could also be a great fit for an ADHD lawyer who is very interested in business, whether that's like doing corporate work or representing businesses in some way, being an in-house lawyer, or perhaps running their own law firm or just managing a law firm. Anything like that could be a real draw for a lawyer with ADHD. So really the big takeaway here is that the best job for an ADHD lawyer is one that they find genuinely interesting and that is also aligned with their core values and their unique strengths. But the next most important factor is having an ADHD-friendly work environment. Because even if you have all of the other things we just talked about, if you don't have a supportive work environment, a lawyer with ADHD is really going to struggle. So in addition to finding like the right practice area or type of work that you want to do, you also are going to want to look for firms or organizations that can understand the types of needs that you have and are willing to accommodate them. And of course, finding a supportive workplace is important for every lawyer, whether neurotypical or neurodivergent. So when I work with my lawyer clients, we develop interview strategies to help them to figure out how receptive an employer is to the types of accommodations they may need. And in terms of finding the best job for you, it's critical to your success in a particular role to have a workplace that is flexible enough to support your very reasonable needs. So in the same way that finding the best job for any lawyer is an individualized inquiry, same goes for ADHD lawyers. And the approach I take with my ADHD lawyer clients is the same approach that I take with my neurotypical lawyers. In my job search strategy coaching, all of my clients start the process by identifying their core values, unique strengths, and their interests. If this is something that you want to figure out because you want to find the best job for you, whether or not you have ADHD, and you would like some support as you go through that process, check out the link in the description. Not only will you get feedback and support from me along the way, but you'll also be joining a community of like-minded lawyers, including some ADHD ones who are on their way to finding the absolute best job for them.